The breakfast you ate this morning, the one your doctor called healthy, the one the American Heart Association told you would protect your heart. That breakfast is quietly destroying your hippocampus right now as you watch this video. I need you to pause whatever you're doing and pay very close attention to what I'm about to share with you. In my 32 years as a neuroscientist and professor of geriatric medicine, I have never seen research this alarming about something so ordinary as your morning meal. Let me tell you about Margaret. Margaret was 73 years old when her daughter brought her to my clinic. A retired school teacher, sharp as a tack her whole life. She could recite poetry from memory, calculate tips faster than her grandchildren could type them into their phones. In 50 years of teaching, she never forgot a single student's name. But 6 months before I met her, Margaret started getting lost driving home from the grocery store she'd visited for 30 years. She forgot her daughter's phone number, and one morning, she called her husband by her late father's name. When I reviewed Margaret's file, I expected to find the usual suspects: family history of Alzheimer's perhaps, maybe head trauma or cardiovascular disease. But there was nothing. Her family history was clean. Her heart was healthy. Her blood pressure was perfect. So I asked her a question I now ask every single patient. Margaret, tell me exactly what you eat for breakfast. She smiled proudly and said, "Oh, I'm very health conscious, doctor. Every morning I have a bowl of instant oatmeal with honey, a glass of fresh squeezed orange juice, and 2 slices of whole wheat toast with margarine. My doctor told me that's the heart-healthy way to start the day." My heart sank, because everything Margaret believed was keeping her healthy was actually accelerating the cognitive decline that brought her to my office. I know that sounds dramatic, but what I'm about to share isn't speculation or alternative medicine. This is peer-reviewed research from Harvard Medical School, the Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins University, and dozens of leading institutions worldwide. A groundbreaking 2024 study published in the journal Neurology followed over 14,000 adults over age 60 for 12 years. Researchers meticulously tracked their dietary patterns, cognitive function, and for those who passed away, they examined brain tissue directly. What they found sent shockwaves through the medical community. Participants who consumed a standard Western breakfast high in refined carbohydrates, added sugars, and processed vegetable oils showed a 40% faster rate of hippocampal shrinkage compared to those eating a neuroprotective breakfast. 40% faster. The hippocampus is the seahorse-shaped structure deep in your brain essential for forming new memories and retrieving old ones. When it shrinks, you don't just become forgetful, you begin to lose yourself. But here's what gives me hope. The same study found that participants who made specific changes to their morning meal actually reversed some of this shrinkage. Their hippocampi grew, in some cases, by as much as 2% per year. That might not sound like much, but in a brain that typically loses 0.5% of its volume annually after 60, a 2% growth is remarkable. It's the difference between forgetting where you put your keys and forgetting that you own a car. Before we dive into the countdown, I need to explain something crucial. Your brain is an energy hog. Even though it weighs only about 3 pounds, roughly 2% of your body weight, it consumes approximately 20 to 25% of all the calories you eat. Every thought, every memory, every decision requires enormous energy. For most of your life, your brain is run primarily on glucose. Your brain loves glucose. It's like premium gasoline for a high-performance engine. But here's the problem. When you consistently flood your brain with too much glucose too quickly, something terrible begins to happen. Your brain cells become insulin resistant. They lose their ability to properly absorb and use that glucose. This condition has become so prevalent and so clearly linked to cognitive decline that researchers at Brown University gave it a name that should terrify you: type 3 diabetes. You've heard of type 1 diabetes, where the pancreas doesn't produce insulin. You've heard of type 2, where the body becomes resistant to insulin. But type 3 diabetes is what happens when your brain becomes resistant to insulin. When that happens, your neurons begin to starve. Even when there's plenty of glucose in your bloodstream, your brain cells can't access it. They become like houses in a blackout, dark and non-functional, surrounded by power lines crackling with electricity they can't use. A 2023 study from the Mayo Clinic found that individuals with the highest levels of brain insulin resistance had nearly triple the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease within 10 years. Triple the risk. And the single biggest predictor of brain insulin resistance wasn't genetics, it wasn't age, it wasn't even family history. It was dietary patterns, specifically what people ate for breakfast. Researchers called the morning meal the metabolic foundation of cognitive health. What you eat in the morning sets the trajectory for your blood sugar, insulin levels, and brain chemistry for the entire day. Start your day with the wrong foods, and you're telling your brain to spend the next 16 hours in crisis mode. Start your day with the right foods, and you give your brain the stable, clean-burning fuel it needs to form memories, maintain focus, and protect itself from degeneration. So let's talk about those wrong foods. I'm counting down from number 3 to number 1, saving the absolute worst offender for last. And I want you to be honest with yourself as we go through this list. If you eat any of these foods regularly, don't feel ashamed. You've been deliberately misled by food companies and, unfortunately, by well-meaning but poorly informed medical advice. But after today, you won't have that excuse anymore. I can already hear some of you protesting. Oatmeal? Isn't oatmeal supposed to be healthy? Isn't it a whole grain? I understand your confusion. For decades, we've been told oatmeal is one of the healthiest breakfast choices. The box shows pictures of happy hearts and claims about fiber and whole grains. But here's what those boxes don't tell you. Instant oatmeal, the kind in convenient little packets that cooks in 90 seconds, is a completely different substance than the steel-cut oats your grandmother made. To create instant oatmeal, manufacturers steam, roll flat, cut into tiny pieces, and pre-cook whole oat groats. By the time that oatmeal reaches your bowl, its molecular structure has fundamentally changed. The result is something with an extremely high glycemic index. The glycemic index measures how quickly a food raises your blood sugar. Pure glucose has a glycemic index of 100. That's the reference point. Old-fashioned oats, cooked slowly on the stove, have a glycemic index of about 55. That's moderate. But instant oatmeal? Depending on the brand, it can range from 75 to 83. Some flavored varieties with added maple syrup or brown sugar push past 85. To put this in perspective, white bread has a glycemic index of about 75. Many instant oatmeals spike your blood sugar faster than plain white bread. A 2024 study published in Diabetologia followed over 5,000 adults for 7 years, measuring breakfast glycemic load and tracking brain structure changes through MRI imaging. Researchers found a direct, dose-dependent relationship between breakfast glycemic index and hippocampal shrinkage. For every 10-point increase in average breakfast glycemic index, participants showed 6% greater hippocampal volume reduction over the study period. The researchers called this deeply concerning because the damage wasn't just happening in people with diabetes. Even in people with completely normal blood sugar levels, these high glycemic breakfasts were quietly shrinking the memory centers of their brains. Let me explain why this happens biologically. When you eat instant oatmeal, your blood sugar spikes rapidly, often reaching peak levels within 15 to 20 minutes. Your pancreas responds by flooding your bloodstream with insulin. But insulin doesn't just affect your blood. It crosses the blood-brain barrier and directly impacts your neurons. When insulin levels spike repeatedly, day after day, year after year, your brain cells begin to downregulate their insulin receptors. They become deaf to insulin signals. This is the beginning of brain insulin resistance. But there's another mechanism even more insidious. When blood sugar spikes, excess glucose undergoes a chemical reaction with proteins, creating compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. AGEs are aptly named because they literally age your tissues from the inside out. In the brain, AGEs accumulate in and around neurons. They create oxidative stress. They trigger inflammation. Most concerning, they accelerate formation of amyloid plaques and tau tangles, the two hallmark pathologies of Alzheimer's disease. A 2023 study from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden found that individuals with the highest blood levels of AGEs had 44% higher risk of developing dementia over the following decade. And where do most AGEs come from? From repeated blood sugar spikes, from eating foods exactly like instant oatmeal, the healthy alternative. If you love oatmeal, switch to steel-cut oats with a glycemic index of around 42 to 50. Cook them slowly, and never eat them plain. Always add healthy fat and protein, a tablespoon of almond butter, a handful of walnuts, some chia seeds. These additions slow glucose absorption dramatically. Before I move to food number 2, tell me in the comments, do you eat instant oatmeal or sugary cereal for breakfast? How many days a week? This one might surprise you even more than the oatmeal. Orange juice has been a breakfast staple in American homes for over a century. It's associated with sunshine, vitality, vitamin C, and immune health. Every hotel breakfast buffet has a picture of it. But I need you to understand something. The juice industry has spent billions hiding. Orange juice is not a health food. From a metabolic and neurological standpoint, it might be one of the most damaging things you can drink, especially first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. When you eat an actual orange, you consume about 9 grams of sugar along with approximately 3 grams of fiber and significant water bound in the fruit's cellular structure. The fiber and structure slow sugar absorption dramatically. It might take your body 45 minutes to process the sugar from one orange, but when you drink a glass of orange juice, you're getting sugar from 3 to 4 oranges, concentrated into liquid containing virtually no fiber that hits your bloodstream almost instantly. A typical 8-ounce glass of orange juice contains approximately 21 grams of sugar. That's more sugar than a glazed donut, and because it's liquid with no fiber, all that sugar hits your liver in one overwhelming wave. Now here's what most doctors don't understand about fruit sugar. The sugar in fruit, and therefore in fruit juice, isn't just glucose. Roughly half is fructose. And fructose is processed completely differently than glucose. Glucose can be used by every cell in your body. Your muscles burn it, your brain uses it directly. But fructose can only be processed by your liver. When you drink a glass of orange juice, you send 10 to 12 grams of fructose straight to your liver all at once. Your liver becomes overwhelmed. It can't process that much fructose quickly enough. So what does it do? It starts converting that fructose into fat through de novo lipogenesis. This leads to fatty liver disease, which has reached epidemic proportions. But it also creates something that directly damages your brain. During fructose metabolism, your liver produces excessive uric acid and generates significant oxidative stress. The metabolic byproducts include inflammatory compounds that don't stay in your liver. They circulate throughout your body, cross the blood-brain barrier, and trigger neuroinflammation. Dr. Richard Johnson at the University of Colorado has spent decades studying fructose metabolism. In his 2023 paper published in Nature Reviews Neuroscience, he described fructose overconsumption as creating metabolic sewage that accumulates in the brain. This metabolic sewage includes oxidized lipids, inflammatory cytokines, and uric acid crystals. These substances irritate and damage neurons. They impair microglia, the brain's immune cells. They contribute directly to the neurodegeneration seen in Alzheimer's disease. A 2024 study from Boston University followed over 4,000 adults for 15 years, tracking fruit juice consumption and measuring cognitive function at regular intervals. The results were striking. Participants who drank 1 or more glasses of fruit juice daily showed cognitive decline equivalent to 2.4 additional years of brain aging compared to those who rarely drank juice. 2.4 years. From something as seemingly innocent as a daily glass of orange juice, there's another mechanism making liquid fruit particularly dangerous in the morning. When you wake up, your liver has been fasting all night. Its glycogen stores are partially depleted. It's in a vulnerable metabolic state. When the first thing you consume is a massive dose of fructose, you hit your liver when it's least prepared. The metabolic dysfunction this creates sets the tone for your entire day. The healthy alternative: if you want vitamin C, eat an actual orange. Better yet, eat a bell pepper, which has more vitamin C than an orange, with a fraction of the sugar. If you want something flavorful to drink, I recommend green tea or water with fresh lemon. Please, stop drinking your fruit. If instant oatmeal is bad and orange juice is worse, then the combination of white toast and margarine is, in my professional opinion, the single most neurotoxic breakfast still considered normal in America. I know that's a strong statement. Millions of people start their day exactly this way. For decades, this combination was actively recommended by doctors and the American Heart Association as a heart-healthy alternative to eggs and butter. But the science has completely reversed. The research linking this breakfast to cognitive decline is now overwhelming. Let me break down exactly what happens when you eat white toast with margarine. First, the white toast. White bread is made from wheat flour stripped of fiber, germ, and most nutrients. What remains is essentially pure starch, which your body converts to glucose almost instantly. White bread has a glycemic index of about 75, similar to pure sugar. When you eat it on an empty stomach in the morning, you get all the blood sugar spikes and insulin surges I described with instant oatmeal, often even more severely. But white bread has another problem. Oatmeal doesn't. It contains gluten. I want to be careful here because there's much misinformation about gluten. Most people don't have celiac disease or clinical gluten intolerance. But here's what recent research reveals. Even in people without celiac disease, Gluten can trigger low-grade inflammatory responses in the gut with downstream effects throughout the body, including the brain. A 2024 study published in The Lancet Neurology examined 3,200 older adults without celiac disease. Researchers measured blood markers of gluten sensitivity and tracked cognitive function over 8 years. Participants with the highest levels of anti-gliadin antibodies, markers of immune reaction to gluten, showed 28% faster cognitive decline than those with the lowest levels. Researchers concluded that subclinical gluten sensitivity may be far more common and consequential than previously believed, with effects on the brain particularly pronounced in older adults whose blood-brain barriers have become more permeable with age. This phenomenon, increased permeability of the blood-brain barrier, is sometimes called leaky brain. It's directly connected to leaky gut, which gluten may contribute to even in non-celiac individuals. When your gut becomes more permeable, inflammatory compounds that should stay in your digestive tract escape into your bloodstream. When your blood-brain barrier becomes more permeable, those compounds reach your neurons directly. The result is chronic, low-grade neuroinflammation, the silent fire smoldering in the brains of most Alzheimer's patients for decades before symptoms appear. Now let's discuss what most people spread on that toast. Margarine. Margarine was invented as a cheap butter substitute and promoted for decades as healthy because it was lower in saturated fat. But to create margarine, manufacturers had to make vegetable oil solid at room temperature through partial hydrogenation. Partial hydrogenation creates trans fats. Trans fats are now recognized as one of the most dangerous substances in the human food supply. They're so dangerous the FDA banned them. But many older margarines still contain small amounts. Even trans fat-free margarines are often made with heavily processed vegetable oils, creating similar problems. Let me explain what trans fats and heavily oxidized vegetable oils do to your brain. Your brain is approximately 60% fat by dry weight. The membranes of your neurons are made of fat. The myelin sheaths insulating your nerve fibers are made of fat. Fat isn't just important for your brain, it literally is your brain. The type of fat you eat directly influences the type incorporated into your brain tissue. When you consume trans fats or heavily oxidized vegetable oils, these damaged fats get incorporated into your neuronal membranes. They make cell membranes stiffer and less functional. They impair neurons' ability to communicate with each other. A landmark study from Rush University, published in 2023 Inches Neurology, followed over 6,000 older adults for 10 years, measuring trans fat consumption and tracking brain structure and function changes. The findings were devastating. Participants in the highest quartile of trans fat consumption showed twice the rate of hippocampal shrinkage as those in the lowest quartile. Their Alzheimer's risk was 74% higher. When researchers examined brains of participants who died during the study, trans fat consumption directly correlated with amyloid plaque density. The lead researcher described trans fats as essentially plastic being incorporated into brain tissue. Even beyond trans fats, processed vegetable oils in modern margarine are highly prone to oxidation. When you spread margarine on hot toast, you often create oxidized lipids right on your plate. These oxidized lipids trigger inflammatory cascades. They damage blood vessel linings. They contribute to atherosclerotic plaques in arteries feeding your brain. Your brain depends entirely on blood flow. Any reduction immediately impairs brain function and, over time, leads to tissue death. The combination of damaged fats, clogging cerebral arteries, and chronic inflammation weakening blood vessel walls creates a perfect storm for vascular dementia, the second most common form after Alzheimer's. For 50 years, we told people to eat margarine instead of butter. We said it would protect their hearts. We were catastrophically wrong. Millions of people, like Margaret, followed that advice faithfully, believing they were doing something good. Instead, they were slowly destroying their brains. If you've been eating toast and margarine, this is not your fault. You were given bad information by people and institutions you trusted. But now you know. I promised I wouldn't just tell you what to avoid. I promised a solution. Let me share the exact breakfast protocol I give my patients. The one research shows can protect your brain, enhance memory, and potentially reverse some damage already done. The core principle is simple: feed your brain fat, not sugar. Remember when I explained your brain can run on glucose, but too much creates insulin resistance and metabolic damage? Your brain has another fuel source, a cleaner, more efficient fuel that doesn't create the same problems: ketones. Ketones are molecules produced by your liver when you're not consuming carbohydrates. They're an ancient fuel source your ancestors relied on when food was scarce. Here's what's remarkable about ketones. Unlike glucose, ketones can enter insulin-resistant brain cells. Even in people whose neurons have become deaf to insulin, ketones slip right in and provide energy. This is why ketogenic diets show such promise in Alzheimer's research. In some studies, patients with mild cognitive impairment who switched to a ketogenic diet showed measurable improvements in memory within just 6 weeks. A 2024 study from Johns Hopkins University found that older adults maintaining mild ketosis for 3 months showed 15% improvement in verbal memory scores and 12% improvement in executive function compared to controls eating a standard diet. I'm not necessarily recommending a full ketogenic diet. What I'm recommending is a breakfast that keeps blood sugar stable and allows your brain to access ketones as supplementary fuel. Here is my recommended neuroprotective breakfast. The foundation is eggs. 2 to 3 eggs cooked in butter or extra virgin olive oil. Eggs are, in my opinion, the perfect brain food. The yolks contain choline, essential for acetylcholine production. Acetylcholine is the primary neurotransmitter for memory and learning. Most Americans are choline deficient, and eggs are one of the best sources. Eggs also contain omega-3 fatty acids, especially pasture-raised eggs. These omega-3 seconds get incorporated directly into neuronal membranes, improving fluidity and function. Eggs are high in protein and fat with 0 carbohydrates. They cause no blood sugar spike whatsoever. Add half a ripe avocado. Avocados are loaded with monounsaturated fats, the same healthy fats making olive oil beneficial. They contain more potassium than bananas, essential for proper nerve function. They provide fiber-feeding beneficial gut bacteria and supporting the gut-brain axis. Include a small handful of walnuts, about 7 to 10 halves. Walnuts are shaped like tiny brains, and perhaps fittingly, they're remarkably good for brain health. They contain the highest omega-3 seconds of any nut and polyphenols and antioxidants, reducing neuroinflammation. A 2024 UCLA study found older adults eating just 1 ounce of walnuts daily for 6 months showed significant improvements in processing speed and memory flexibility. Finally, drink green tea instead of orange juice or coffee. Green tea contains L-theanine, an amino acid crossing the blood-brain barrier and increasing calming neurotransmitter production. It also contains EGCG, a polyphenol shown to reduce amyloid plaque formation in animal studies. The L-theanine and caffeine combination creates calm, focused alertness ideal for cognitive function. This breakfast, eggs with avocado, walnuts, and green tea, provides clean-burning fat for energy, essential nutrients for neurotransmitter production, anti-inflammatory compounds, and stable blood sugar that won't trigger insulin resistance. It takes about 10 minutes to prepare. It keeps you satisfied for hours. It sets your brain up for optimal function all day. I want to leave you with something I tell every patient sitting in my office. Scared about memory, worried about the future. Your brain is not static. It's not something that simply decays with age without intervention possibility. Your brain is dynamic. It responds to what you do. It responds to what you eat. Every morning, you have a choice. Feed your brain foods accelerating decline, or feed it foods that protect and nourish it. The 3 foods I warned you about today, instant oatmeal and sugary cereals, orange juice and liquid fruit, and white toast with margarine, won't give you dementia tomorrow. This isn't about immediate danger. It's about the cumulative effect of thousands of breakfasts over decades. The slow, silent shrinkage of your hippocampus. The gradual accumulation of metabolic damage that one day crosses a threshold from which you cannot return. But the opposite is also true. Every neuroprotective breakfast is a deposit in your cognitive bank account. Every morning you choose eggs over toast, avocado over margarine, green tea over orange juice. You're investing in a future where you remember your grandchildren's names, live independently, and spend your final years in clarity rather than confusion. I think about Margaret often. She made dramatic changes after our consultation. It wasn't easy after decades of habit, but she did it. While I can't say she's been cured, because that's not how science works, her decline rate has slowed remarkably. 2 years later, she's still living independently. She still calls her husband by the right name. She recently told me she feels sharper than she has in years. That's the power of this information. Not miracle cures, not overnight transformations, but the ability to change your trajectory, to take control of your brain health in a way that matters. If this video helped you, please share it with someone you love, your spouse, your siblings, your friends. They deserve this information too. Leave a comment telling me what you eat for breakfast now, and whether you're willing to make changes after watching this video. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Your brain is precious. Protect it, and I'll see you in the next video.